You're now observing the pons, the middle portion of the brainstem, situated between the medulla oblongata below and the midbrain above. It acts as a crucial relay station connecting the cerebrum to the cerebellum and spinal cord and houses several vital cranial nerve nuclei and fiber tracts. Let's begin with its external features. On the ventral surface, the most striking feature is the broad, convex bulge of the basilar part of the pons. This anterior bulge results from the underlying transverse pontine fibers, which sweep from one side of the pons to the other and converge into the middle cerebellar peduncles, forming a bridge between the pons and cerebellum. These transverse fibers overlie and interweave with the descending corticospinal, corticobulbar, and corticopontine tracts. Running vertically down the midline is the shallow basilar sulcus, where the basilar artery lies. Emerging laterally at the junction between the pons and medulla are the roots of several cranial nerves: abducens nerve, 6, facial nerve, 7, and vestibulocochlear nerve, 8. The abducens nerve emerges more medially, close to the midline, while the facial and vestibulocochlear nerves exit laterally near the cerebello-pontine angle. Cranial nerve V, the trigeminal nerve, emerges more superiorly and laterally from the mid-pons level. It has two components, a large sensory root and a smaller motor root. This is one of the key landmarks for identifying the pons in gross dissection. Shifting to the dorsal surface of the pons, it contributes to the floor of the fourth ventricle. The floor of the fourth ventricle is diamond-shaped and is divided into symmetrical halves by the median sulcus. On each side of this sulcus, you'll see the medial eminence, which is slightly elevated. The facial colliculus lies on this eminence, a raised area produced by the underlying abducens nucleus and the looping fibers of the facial nerve arching over it. Laterally on the floor, the vestibular area houses nuclei associated with the vestibular nerve. The dorsal surface of the pons is covered by a thin layer of white matter known as the superior medullary velum, extending toward the cerebellum. Now let's explore the internal features of the pons, which is divided into two main parts, the ventral or basilar part and the dorsal or tegmental part. The ventral part contains longitudinal descending tracts like the corticospinal and corticobulbar tracts, which pass through the pons en route to the spinal cord and cranial motor nuclei, respectively. Also present are the pontine nuclei, clusters of gray matter that receive inputs from the cortex and relay them via transverse pontocerebellar fibers to the cerebellum through the middle cerebellar peduncles. This cortico-pontocerebellar pathway is critical for motor coordination. The dorsal part, or pontine tegmentum, contains ascending sensory pathways such as the medial lemniscus and the spinothalamic tracts. The medial lemniscus carries information related to fine touch, vibration, and proprioception, while the spinothalamic tract carries pain and temperature sensations. Embedded within the tegmentum are numerous cranial nerve nuclei. The motor nucleus of the trigeminal nerve, V, for mastication. The principal sensory nucleus of V for facial tactile sensation. The abducens nucleus, 6, which controls the lateral rectus muscle. The facial nucleus, 7, which provides motor innervation to the muscles of facial expression. Portions of the vestibular and cochlear nuclei, 8, involved in balance and hearing. Also found in the pontine tegmentum is the reticular formation, involved in regulating consciousness, arousal, and cardiovascular control. The medial longitudinal fasciculus runs longitudinally near the midline and coordinates head and eye movements by linking cranial nerve nuclei. Laterally in the tegmentum, the superior cerebellar peduncle connects the cerebellum to the midbrain and decussates within the upper pons. The pons receives its blood supply primarily from branches of the basilar artery, including the paramedian, short circumferential, and long circumferential arteries. Lesions in these vascular territories can lead to characteristic clinical syndromes such as locked-in syndrome, caused by bilateral damage to the corticospinal and corticobulbar tracts in the basilar part of the pons. In summary, the external features of the pons include its prominent ventral bulge, the basilar sulcus, cranial nerve emergence points, and its contribution to the floor of the fourth ventricle. Internally, it contains essential motor and sensory pathways, cranial nerve nuclei, cerebellar connections, and vital centers for coordination, autonomic control, and consciousness. The pons is both a passageway and a processor linking higher and lower centers and facilitating precise motor control.